The night sky over the Pacific shimmered with the faint glow of distant stars, but to Captain Daniel Reaves, those stars felt like fragile lanterns trembling against the vast darkness. His B-29 superfortress, codenamed Iron Angel, hummed with the rhythm of 4 massive engines. Every vibration coursed through the steel bones of the aircraft, reminding him of the fragile boundary between flight and oblivion. "Captain, 20 minutes until target," came Lieutenant Harris's voice through the intercom. His bombardier's tone was steady, though Daniel sensed the quiet undertow of tension. Below them stretched Japan, cities sleeping, unaware, or perhaps too aware, of what would soon rain upon them. The mission was simple yet brutal: firebombing. Wooden houses, narrow streets, and entire neighborhoods were tinder for the napalm-filled bombs loaded in Iron Angel's belly. The crew had trained for this moment, but no one ever truly trained their conscience. Sergeant Walker, the tail gunner, broke the silence. Radars picking up movement, Cap might be fighters gearing up. His words were clipped, professional, but Daniel heard the tightness in them. Enemy resistance was expected. Japanese Zeros often swarmed the bombers like hornets, and the threat of flak artillery was constant. Still, the mission had to be carried out. The formation of bombers stretched across the horizon, each aircraft a winged leviathan carrying destruction. Daniel's eyes scanned the skies, waiting, expecting. The darkness suddenly tore open with orange flares as anti-aircraft guns from below spat upward. Explosions blossomed like fiery flowers in the sky, each detonation rattling the aircraft. "Evasive maneuvers, hold steady!" Daniel barked, gripping the controls. Tracer rounds zipped past like streaks of molten lightning. Then came the howl of engines. Zeros. Sleek, deadly, and fearless, they darted toward the formation. One sliced past Iron Angel's nose, machine guns blazing. Harris swore, ducking instinctively as rounds pinged against the fuselage. "Walker, take him down," Daniel ordered. The B-29's tail gun roared, spitting lead into the void. A Zero spiraled into flames, its fiery arc crashing toward the Black Sea. But for every one shot down, more pressed forward. The bomber shook violently. A burst of flak ripped through the right wing, shredding metal and sending sparks across the cockpit. The smell of burning insulation filled the air. "Engine 3 hit!" shouted Engineer Clark, hands scrambling across dials and switches. Daniel clenched his jaw. They couldn't turn back. Not yet. The city lay just ahead, outlined faintly in the moonlight. Fires already burned from earlier raids, glowing like molten veins across the landscape. The bombardier called out. "Target in sight." Lining up. Through the bomb site, Harris saw Tokyo sprawled below, rows of fragile rooftops, quiet temples, narrow streets waiting to ignite. He steadied his breathing, finger hovering over the release. The world outside was chaos. Gunfire, explosions, the scream of engines. Inside the bomber, everything narrowed to a single moment of decision. "Bombs away," Harris said, voice cutting like steel. The belly of Iron Angel opened. Dozens of firebombs tumbled into the darkness, trailing faint glimmers before vanishing below. Seconds later, the city erupted. Flames leapt into the sky, rising as though the earth itself exhaled fury. Streets became rivers of fire, buildings crumbled like torches, and smoke spiraled into towering columns. A silence filled the bomber's cabin, not relief, not triumph, but something colder. The crew watched the inferno spread, swallowing neighborhoods with terrifying speed. Then came the counterattack. A Zero swooped from below, guns flashing. Bullets ripped into Iron Angel's fuselage. Sparks cascaded in the cabin, and Harris was thrown against his harness. "Walker, now!" Daniel roared. The tail gun thundered again, shredding the Zero in a hail of fire. The Japanese fighter burst apart, scattering fiery fragments into the night. The mission wasn't over, but the first wave had struck. Daniel exhaled slowly, gripping the yoke tighter. The firestorm below mirrored the war inside his chest. And ahead, the sky promised more battles before the dawn. Smoke from Tokyo still stained the horizon as the bombers regrouped, their wings scarred, their crews shaken but alive. Iron Angel limped slightly, its damaged wing vibrating with each gust of wind, but Daniel forced her steady. "Captain, we're ordered toward Yokohama." "Second strike," Harris reported. His voice was taut, his eyes shadowed by what they had just unleashed. Daniel nodded grimly. "Roger. Keep formation." The crew was silent now, each man locked inside his own thoughts. The image of the burning city lingered in their minds, men, women, children, all consumed by the fire. Yet hesitation had no place in war. Orders were orders. The night grew heavier as the formation pressed forward. Flak fire resumed, streaks of orange splitting the darkness. Then, from the depths of the clouds, more Zeros emerged, relentless. "Bogies incoming, 6 o'clock." Walker shouted. The bomber shuddered under another spray of bullets. Glass shattered across the cabin, and Clark cursed as he ducked sparks. Daniel jerked the controls, fighting to keep the giant bomber steady. "Return fire. Keep them off us." The gunners unleashed hell. Tracers stitched across the sky, catching 1-0 in its path. The enemy fighter erupted in a ball of fire, but 2 more closed in from the flanks. The air was a deadly chessboard, each move a gamble with death. Suddenly, 1-0 dove beneath Iron Angel and reappeared on the starboard side. Its guns tore into the bomber's engine again, flames spitting from the nacelle. Clark scrambled to contain the fire. "We're losing her, Cap. Engine 3's gone." Daniel's mind raced. Losing 1 engine was manageable. Losing 2 meant death. But through the chaos, Harris's voice cut through. "Target acquired. Yokohama dead ahead." Below, another city sprawled across the coast. Factories, warehouses, and homes, an entire lifeline of the Japanese war effort. Daniel clenched his jaw. To turn back now would waste everything. "Hold her steady," he ordered. Flak tore open the sky as Harris leaned into the bomb site. His hands trembled, sweat dripping from his forehead, but his voice was cold when he spoke. "Bombs away." The payload fell. Explosions blossomed across Yokohama, fire crawling like a predator unleashed. Warehouses cracked open in bursts of flame, factories lit like torches, and entire blocks dissolved in infernos. But at that very instant, the bomber convulsed violently. A Zero had struck its flank, ripping through the fuselage. Clark screamed as shrapnel tore across his arm. Blood splattered against the controls. Clark's hit. Daniel's hands tightened on the yoke. "Harris, tend to him. Walker, cover us." The bomber dipped, alarms wailing, as fire licked dangerously close to the fuel lines. Harris scrambled, pressing cloth against Clark's wound while trying to keep him conscious. Through the chaos, Walker's gun roared again. A Zero disintegrated under his barrage, but another clipped the wing before spiraling away. Daniel forced Iron Angel higher, straining the engines, pushing the battered bird beyond her limits. The bomber rattled, groaned, but still held. Then, silence. The attacking fighters peeled away, retreating into the night. The firestorm below spread unchecked, Yokohama burning as Tokyo had before. The crew sat in breathless exhaustion, bloodied but alive. Clark winced as Harris tied a bandage tight around his arm. Daniel's voice, steady but grim, broke the quiet. "We've done our part. Now we just have to make it home." But as he looked at the flames consuming Yokohama, he knew home was a word that no longer felt real. The war in the sky was far from over. Dawn broke over the Pacific with a pale light, painting the battered bombers in shades of silver. Iron Angel limped westward, engines groaning, fuselage torn but still airborne. Every mile toward base was a fragile victory. The crew sat in silence, exhaustion weighing them down. Clark's bandaged arm bled through, but he kept his jaw clenched, refusing to let pain slow him. Harris slumped in his seat, his eyes fixed on the horizon, though his mind replayed the inferno they had left behind. Then the radio crackled. Enemy fighters detected, brace for interception. Daniel's heart sank. They weren't safe yet. Moments later, the first silhouettes appeared against the rising sun. A squadron of Japanese fighters, more organized, more desperate than before. Their engines screamed as they closed the distance, sunlight glinting off their wings. "Battle stations!" Daniel roared. Walker's guns thundered, tracers streaking toward the incoming fighters. 1-0 burst apart in flames, but the others pressed closer. Bullets riddled Iron Angel's hull, sending shards of metal flying. The bomber shook violently, her wounded frame barely holding. Left flank. Incoming. Harris shouted. A Zero dived, guns blazing. Daniel yanked the controls, forcing the bomber into a gut-wrenching roll. The massive aircraft groaned but evaded the worst of the barrage. Walker fired again, catching the attacker mid-dive. The enemy disintegrated in a flash of fire. But the fight was relentless. More fighters swarmed, circling, striking, vanishing into the clouds before returning. Each pass chipped away at the bomber's strength. Clark, pale but determined, called out. "Fuel lines hit. We won't last long." Daniel's eyes narrowed. They were too far to ditch safely, too damaged to outrun. But retreat wasn't an option. They had one chance left, to fight until the end. Walker, pour everything into them. Harris, ready flares. If they want to take us, they'll burn for it. The sky erupted into chaos. Walker's guns roared until the barrels glowed. Harris fired flares into the swarm, dazzling the fighters momentarily. The crew fought with every ounce of defiance left in them. Then, as the battle reached its fever pitch, salvation arrived. "Eagles incoming," the radio crackled. From the east, American P-51 Mustangs sliced into the fight, their sleek forms diving with lethal grace. Gunfire shredded the enemy squadron, cutting Zeros from the sky. The balance shifted in an instant. Cheers erupted inside Iron Angel. Relief flooded their veins as the P-51s drove the last of the fighters into retreat. But the cost had already been paid. Iron Angel was crippled, smoke trailing from her wings. Daniel wrestled with the controls, guiding her toward base. Each mile was a battle against gravity, each breath a prayer. Finally, the airstrip came into view. Fire trucks and medics waited, tiny figures against the expanse of concrete. Daniel's hands trembled as he coaxed the bomber down. The landing gear groaned, the runway rushed beneath them, and with a final bone-jarring screech, Iron Angel came to rest. Silence fell inside the cabin. They had made it. Clark was rushed to medics, Harris staggered out into the sunlight, and Walker sat quietly, staring at the scorched sky. Daniel lingered in the cockpit, hands still gripping the yoke. He thought of the flames, the cities burning, the men they lost and the men they killed. Victory felt hollow, like ashes carried on the wind. But one truth remained. The firebomb war in the sky was over for now, and they had survived to see another day. Yet deep inside, Daniel knew the inferno would never leave them.